54% of all preschool suspensions are of black girls. They only make up 20% of students enrolled in preschool. This statistic is one of many reasons why I decided to choose this topic. Among other reasons that I've chosen this topic are my personal experiences as a student, as a teacher, and as a mother who has a student currently having some similar experiences. Black girls are often subject to teacher biases, rules that are inherently racially biased, as well as racist and sexist stereotypes and other factors such as lack of understanding of trauma. Due to these misunderstandings and biases, black girls tend to receive harsher punishments than other girls for the same behavioral incidents and are suspended at 6 times the rate that other girls are. As I researched my topic, I've thought about the school to prison pipeline phenomenon. According to the ACLU, the school to prison pipeline is a disturbing national trend wherein children are funneled out of public schools and into the juvenile and criminal justice systems. Many of these children have learning disabilities or histories of poverty, abuse, or neglect, and would benefit from additional educational and counseling services. Instead, they are isolated, punished, and pushed out. Typically, when I hear this conversation, I hear conversations of how this affects black boys and black men, how this affects Hispanic and Latino boys and men. However, I never hear black girls and black women included in this conversation. The racial and gender biases of teachers influence not only how they teach students, but also how they discipline them. Black girls tend to encounter racially and gender biased stereotypes that are used to determine how appropriate their behavior is in a classroom setting. Black girls are also more likely to be perceived by adults as loud and defiant and in constant need of correction than girls of other racial and ethnic backgrounds. A result of this is that they tend to be punished more frequently for acting in this unladylike manner or for talking back and being aggressive when they're simply expressing their opinion. Another issue that feeds these disparities are the lack of trauma that a lot of black girls face. According to a report done by the NAACP Legal Defense and Educational Fund in 2014, black girls report higher rates of sexual harassment and assault and dating violence than their white counterparts. Among female students, African American girls also face the highest rates of threatened violence or injury with a weapon on school property, and they are also disproportionately vulnerable to child sex trafficking, victimization, and to prosecution for their involvement in that underground economy. Other forms of trauma that most don't truly think of as trauma is when students become the parent. A lot of black girls have to take on the responsibility as the mother in their household. They are responsible for waking up their younger siblings and getting them together for school. They are responsible for making sure that everyone gets up on time. Sometimes they're even responsible for cooking for their siblings and making sure that everyone is bathed and put to bed, which means that they tend to come to school with what most consider is an attitude when really they are exhausted and they are tired of being picked on by their teachers and called lazy and disrespectful when One of the key factors that aids in the disparities among suspension rates and harsh disciplinary actions that are taken against black girls are the often racially biased zero tolerance policies. We can look at some of the simplest zero tolerance policies that schools have, such as policies about dress code. We have seen in the news in the last couple of years more and more how black girls have been suspended for wearing their natural hair and wearing hairstyles that are a part of their culture, such as braids, locks, and twists. Suspensions and expulsions for these types of non-behavioral incidences bring us back to the historical legacy of the systemic racism that has existed for hundreds of years. Zero tolerance policies are seen as a one-size-fits-all disciplinary system. These policies aid in funneling students from school to prison. The use of these policies don't allow administrators to focus on restorative practices when they already have a harsh, predetermined punishment. Zero tolerance policies apply no matter the circumstance that the behavior occurred, such as self-defense or the student's history or lack thereof disciplinary problems. Again, this one-size-fits-all system for consequences is being used, and it doesn't really truly allow administration to think about factors that contribute to the behavioral incident. How can we respond to this issue? We need to make black girls feel visible and valued. We need programs that provide a welcoming space that will allow black girls to be seen and heard. We need to reevaluate zero tolerance policies. Again, these policies funnel students from school to prison. They don't really allow administration to take into account the whole child, why they were involved in this incident, what made the incident occur, the student's history and lack thereof of their own disciplinary issues. We need to look at behavioral incidents on a case-by-case basis because every incident is not the same and does not occur for the same reasons every single time. We need to resist re-traumatizing students in the classroom. Teachers should be knowledgeable of the traumas their students have experienced, as well as any situations in the classroom that may trigger an emotional or behavioral response to trauma. For many students, their school or their classroom can be a safe place for them, and teachers need to be sensitive to those triggers and try to eliminate them as they try to have more positive interactions with their students. We also need to explore and address the conscious and unconscious bias of teachers and administrators. We need to address these biases before they come into a classroom. We see and hear how teachers really feel in passing when they make remarks about a student whose background they did not care to get to know or who they did not care to build a relationship with. Teachers fail to realize or fail to care about the lasting impression that they leave on a student's educational journey, and that affects the student's relationship with teachers and school in general as they go forward. We need to unpack our biases and take a deep dive into them and do our best to be intentional in our teaching practices so that our biases don't get in the way when we are assessing a student academically or their behaviors. After all the research, I reflected on everything that I have learned, as well as my personal experiences, again, as a student, a mother, and a teacher. I came to the conclusion that we truly need to address our own biases. We also need to be proactive versus being reactive. So we truly need to reevaluate the zero tolerance policies so that we can use more restorative practices and be more proactive in trying to prevent some of the behavior that results in some of these disciplinary actions that causes Black girls to be suspended at 6 times the rate as any other female in school.